In this video, we'll see how to model a glazed roof to create a skylight within an existing roof. We'll see how to create an opening in the existing roof to accommodate the skylight, and how to apply mullions to the glazed roof to create the frame. I have the exercise file, glazed roofs open, and zooming into the 3D view here, we can see the roof that we will create the skylight within. We'll create an opening first that spans the ridge line here, and then within that opening we'll create the glazed roof for the skylight. It will be easier to create the opening in a plan view, so from the project browser we'll go to the floor plans and we'll open up the roof floor plan view. And now zooming into the top of the building on the screen here, we can see the ridge line that we'll create the opening either side of. And to do this, we'll go to the architecture ribbon tab, and from the opening panel we'll choose the vertical opening tool. First, we need to select the object to create the opening within, so we'll click the roof here. And now that we have the create opening boundary tools, we can see we have the draw tools here and it's set to be a line. So I'll change this to be a rectangle. And now we can come over to the roof here, and I'll snap to the middle of the line on the surface pattern here at the top left. And now we'll go down to the opposite corner on the other side of the ridge line and we'll snap to this grid line just here. So now having got that sketched in, I'll click modify to finish the sketching. And the lines at the top and bottom are in the correct location as we've snapped to the actual surface pattern of the roof. So I'll choose the vertical line here on the left, and we'll change its temporary dimension to be 2'6". And now I'll select the vertical line on the right side of the sketch here, and we'll set the overall width of the opening to be 7'6". So now having got that sketch created, we'll click Finish Edit Mode, and then the opening will be created within that roof, so we can see here the opening, and obviously the surface pattern is not going through that. And if I swap back to the 3D view, again we can see the opening in the roof here. The opening is a separate object, so if we did need to edit its size, we can see whilst it's still selected that on the modify opening ribbon here we've got the tool to edit the boundary lines again. But ours is in the correct place, so now we'll create the glazed roof for the skylight. And to do this, we'll use the roof by extrusion tool. So from the architecture ribbon tab on the build panel, under the roof by footprint tool, we'll choose roof by extrusion. Now we need to have a non-horizontal work plane set as current, and we can see in the work plane settings here that the current work plane is set to none. So beneath this we need to specify a new work plane, and we'll leave the option set to pick a plane, and then we'll click OK, and now we can just zoom in to the end of the opening here and click on the vertical edge of the roof. So now we have that selected, we have to associate it to a level, so we'll leave this set to be the roof level and click OK. And now we have the create extrusion roof profile ribbon tools. And looking at the draw tools, they're set to be a straight line, so we'll leave that set and we'll zoom right in here, and we can just snap to the lower left corner of the opening here, and then go up and snap to the ridge, and then we'll go across to the other side of the opening here and snap to draw that line in. And now we'll click modify to finish drawing the sketch lines. And now looking at the type selector at the top of the properties palette, we can see we have the 9-inch corrugated deck and insulation roof type. So if we select on this, we can scroll down through the basic roofs here, and we can now choose the sloped glazing roof type to apply to our sketch. And now we can go back to the create extrusion profile ribbon here and click finish edit mode, and that roof will be created, and we can see now that that's our glazed roof, and it's extruded away from that edge on the profile here. However, zooming out a little, we can see it's going too far, and looking at the properties palette here, we can see we have an extrusion end value which is over 139 feet, and zooming out we can see that's quite a long way. And look at the end, we do have a drag grip at the end, so we could try and drag this back into place. But actually I know that this extrusion end value should be 33 feet, so let's click into the properties palette here and set that value to 33 feet. And now we can see that that glazed roof fills in the opening that we created. And zooming in, we can see we have one long pane of glass for each side of the glazed roof there. And we'd like to split that into smaller pieces, so we'll need to add some grid lines in first. And to do this, we need to edit the type properties of the sloped glazing. So with it selected, on the top of the properties palette here, we'll click Edit Type. And now looking at the parameters, we have a panel for grid 1, and we can see that its layout is set to none. So we'll change this to be a fixed number, and then we can click OK to save that change. And in the view here, we can see that we now have some grid lines, and looking at the properties palette here, for the panel for grid 1, we can see that we have 4 grid lines. So we'll change this to 10, and then once that's applied, we can see that number of grid lines updated within the roof. So now we just need to add the mullions. So from the Architecture ribbon tab on the Build panel, we'll choose the mullion tool. We can see that we have the rectangular mullion 1.5 by 3 inch rectangular selected, and we'll use this one for now. So looking at the Place Mullions ribbon, we have some placement options, and we'll change it from single grid line to all grid lines. And then we can come into the model and just click on the grid lines on either side here, and we can see those mullions have been placed and creating a frame around our skylight. Zooming into the ridge a little, we can see that we actually have 2 mullions across here, and it makes it look like it's slightly disconnected. So we'll replace these with one corner mullion. So to do this, we'll select on one of the mullions here, and now we'll right click, and from the Select Mullions submenu here, we'll choose On Grid Line. And that's now selected all of the mullions along that ridge line. So we'll go to the type selector, and then we'll change it from the rectangular 1.5 by 3 inch mullion here to be the quad corner 1.5 by 3 inch. And then once we apply this, we can see we get a warning down here in the bottom right corner. And it's telling us that the quad corner cannot overlap the other set of mullions on the opposite side. So we'll click the Delete Elements option to delete those mullions, and then we'll be left with that quad corner mullion along the ridge of our skylight. So zooming out, we can see that completes the frames on the skylights there and finishes making the glazed roof.